All right, let's get on with the third meeting of the evening. Thank you all for being here. Hi, Mom. I'm glad you could come. Okay, moving on. At this time, it's 6:03, and I'd like to call this commission meeting to order. I would like to ask my friend, Mr. Leon Miller, to lead us in our invocation this evening. We're so happy to have you here with us.
May we pray. Our Father, our God, again we come with mercy and happiness and sadness, O Heavenly Father. But we depend on you, O Heavenly Father, to answer all of our questions, O Heavenly Father. O Heavenly Father, we ask you to look up under this country, the things that we are going through, O Heavenly Father. Continue to guide us, O Heavenly Father. O Heavenly Father, we ask you to look up under this city commission. Give them the strength to make the right decision that's going to satisfy people in Lynn Haven, O Heavenly Father. O Heavenly Father, continue to bless us and look up under the citizens of Lynn Haven. Give us strength and love for each other. In thy name, for Christ's sake, ever. Amen.
You join me now in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which is one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Our first order of business this evening, item number 3, is a public hearing. So at this time, I would like to call this public hearing to order at 6:04 Central Time. This is the Small Scale Future Land Use Map Amendment, SSA 18-2 at 6220 House of Seafood Drive. Transmittal is the ordinance number 1050, and this is a final reading. There will be no action taken until item number 11 of tonight's agenda, and our city planner, Amanda Richard, has a report for us on this item. Thank you.
This is a small-scale future land use map amendment. The applicant is Bailey Point LLC. The agent, Panhandle Engineering, Inc. The address is 6220 House of Seafood Drive, parcel number 08835-010-000. The existing land use is commercial and the requested land use is mixed use. The existing uses on the site, there is nothing on the site currently, it is a vacant site. It used to be the home of a restaurant, the House of Seafood. The size of the property is 1.69 acres, and the adjacent land uses are mixed use on all sides. This shows the location, this slide shows the location of the property, so it's just across the bridge that leads over to the other side of the Bailey Bridge. This is the aerial, it shows you the vacant lot and the size of the lot there. This is the land use map, it's the current land use map. I think I've got a, yes. So this is the site here. It's currently commercial, but as you can see, mixed use surrounds it on all sides. And the developer, well, the agent for the developer is actually asking for a mixed use land use for this site. They were given a development order last year, almost a year ago actually, because they were going to build townhomes on there, but they would like to now have the mixed use land use so that they have a bit more flexibility in what they can put there, because the townhomes turned out to be not viable financially, I understand.
Okay. At this time, if I could ask Mr. White to read the ordinance 1050.
Ordinance number 1050, an ordinance providing for the adoption pursuant to Chapter 163, Florida statutes, of a land use change from commercial to mixed use for an approximate 1.692 acres of property located at 6220 House of Seafood Drive in the city of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Are there any questions or concerns from any board member to, or questions that you'd have for Ms. Richard regarding this land use change, or any comments you'd like to make? Commissioner Barnes or Commissioner Tender, did you have any comments?
I
No,
have no
thank you,
comment.
Mayor.
Okay, none from Commissioner Tender. Commissioner Barnes, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
No, I have no comment.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the public regarding this? Yes, Mrs. Walker.
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Can I be told what can be built in a mixed-use designation?
Yes, Mrs. Richard, do you mind? Thank you very much.
Mixed use allows for single-family homes, multi-family homes to include duplexes and townhomes. It also allows for certain types of commercial, but lower intense commercial than is allowed under the current commercial designation. So it allows for retail, and it also allows for offices and that kind of thing, but not, large box stores such as Walmart and those kinds of things. It allows for restaurants, yes. Yes. And it also, as I say, allows for single-family homes, whereas commercial doesn't.
Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments from the public? There appear to be none. So this public hearing I will close at 6:09 Central Time. Before I begin item number 4, the mayor's report, neglected to ask for a motion to allow Commissioner Tender and Commissioner Barnes to participate in the City Commission meeting by phone. We did a motion already for the workshops, but our city attorney has advised me that we also need to do one for the meeting. Thank you.
So move.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objection from anyone in the public? There appears to be none. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, and so they will be permitted to participate by phone. For those of you who may have joined us after the workshops, Commissioner Barnes is recovering from surgery at home, and Commissioner Tender is suffering with the flu. She's getting a little better, but she's very ill, so they're both participating by phone this evening. The mayor's report, great pleasure. It was a lot of fun. I got to read to the second graders at Lynn Haven Elementary School in honor of National Literacy Week. And we talked about the Blue Ribbon Day, and we had quite a discussion going on, and they have a lot to say in second grade. So as a former high school and college teacher, it was very nice to hear what second graders have as perspectives on the world. They're also extremely interested in their city government, and one of their questions was, did I own everything in the city? And I told them, no, I didn't, that they did, and they were quite thrilled with that answer. So the next item, I have several meetings I'm going to be attending this week and next that I kind of wanted to tell you about so that you could follow. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to be attending the Panama City Airport Authority Board, which meets at 9 o'clock, and don't participate, speak, anything of that nature. I just want to go and listen and learn, and also sort of experiment and find out how we as Lynn Haven could gain some more representation. The other cities, Panama City Beach, as well as the county representation on that board. There's even another county that has a board member, but Lynn Haven, as the second largest municipality, has no representation on the board at all. So many people in Bay County are distressed that we have to drive 100 miles to find a flight that's affordable. There are not a great many options. Comments are in no way meant to criticize our airport board or to criticize anyone involved. I would just like for us to take a fresh look at it and see if there might be some new options that we could explore in government to try and make that a more viable airport and one that would serve us better as a community. So that's a goal of mine this week. I'll also be attending the Bay County League of Cities meeting tomorrow at Panama City. Commissioner Billy Rader is the president of our local organization. And then next week, both myself and the city are traveling to Tallahassee to attend the League of Cities. I'm having trouble with this microphone, I'm sorry. To attend the legislative lobbying event by the League of Cities. We'll be meeting with all the representatives from our district and talking to them about how funding given to the different areas, how we can more usefully meet with our representatives and how we can get them to sort of see what our needs are here. So there is one bill that's before the House that I really want to address as mayor, and that is that the state has before them right now. They're trying to dictate to municipalities when our elections can be. They're trying to, this bill, if it goes through, will tell us that we either have to have our city elections on the same day in November as the other elections, or they're telling us on the second Tuesday in March or the Tuesday or that kind of thing. And if you're like me, and if you're not, please let me know, but I believe that as a city, as a municipality, that we should have that authority to decide when our own city elections are, that the state should not decide that for us, because we have different events and timelines. So if you feel differently about that, please let me know, so that as I'm talking to our representatives, that, you know, we might have a different perspective. And then next Monday, the 29th, I do plan to attend the Triumph board meeting in Apalachicola at 1 o'clock to hear what's happening with the disbursement of the Triumph funds. As you remember, we talked about a few weeks ago that the Bay County Commission did push forward 11 projects which they recommended, and their recommendation weighs heavily on those applications. And Lynn Haven's applications were not recommended, and there were some private organizations that were recommended. My understanding of the Florida statutes say that the municipalities' projects should be considered. And so that's why I'm going to the meeting. Mexico Beach, another municipality, they were also left out of that recommendation, and they have a pier that's in great need, and they are a municipality. So I just want to go and listen and try to learn why the municipalities were not pushed forward and some of the private entities were. So that's why I'm going to that. And then I can't read my own writing. That's really sad. I have spent a great deal of time on social media the last couple of weeks trying to speak with residents about their views on the Marina Island project, as well as some of the other things that are going on. And finally, one of our residents who is actually here this evening, who lives at 1019 Tennessee Avenue, he lives, Mr. Alderman, he lives, Alderson, excuse me, lives a few blocks from me. I'm on the 500 block, and he's on the 1000 block. And his letter, which I did pass on to the city manager today, it outlines how the traffic on Tennessee Avenue, we're still having a speeding problem there. He did comment that the 2 stop signs that have been placed at 9th and 12th have helped to mitigate that issue, but that we're still having an issue to the point that he is, if I'm paraphrasing, so if I don't quote you correctly, you let me know, but he is in fear to back onto the street for fear of being T-boned by a car speeding. So I just want to bring that to the traffic committee's attention, that we could look at Tennessee again. And I always have to be full disclosure, because I live on Tennessee too, and there are many other streets that need our attention as well. So I'm not trying to call attention to the mayor's street. I'm just trying to pull attention to another resident. So that they will be looking at that in a traffic study by our new ordinance. And that, I believe, completes my report. And so I will pass over to Commissioner Friend for his report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, a couple of things. I have met with city manager a few times, of course, and also city engineer, but I just wanted to bring everyone up to speed on the Rails for Trails. I know it's been mentioned a couple of times. Of course, it's attached to the Marina Island. Just want to let everyone know that as you recall, we did receive, as we made application for the Sun Trails program, which is a Florida program. We made application there for some engineering money, received that money. Of course, the commission approved to accept it and apply for it, $268,000. So the engineer has been working on a plan for the Rails for Trails, and hopefully about 60% done. So hopefully in February, we'll be able to see a presentation on the future of the Rails for Trails for Lynn Haven. So very excited about that. I will also be traveling on behalf of the TPO for the MPOAC next week, going to a meeting down there. It's a quarterly meeting, and also be attending Safe Street Summits. But just as a reminder, that's something I do on behalf of the TPO, so there's no expense to the city of Lynn Haven. But that being said, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about what the MPOAC is, or what the TPO is, or what we do and how we do that, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be glad to go over it with you. Speaking of the TPO, the MPOAC, I'm sorry, MPOs and TPOs, I was going to bring this up tonight in public, so that the mayor and I can't speak, obviously, outside of public too much on things that we could be voting on. But when you guys visit Tallahassee, I'd like for you to look into HB, which is House Bill 575, and also it's very similar, Senate Bill 1516. I went over it a little bit with City Manager, but a little more in detail. It directly affects our TPO, and it could limit the number of seats that a TPO, and a TPO is a transportation area. Ours just happens to be Bay County, but it could be beyond Bay County, and across the state they're also referred to as MPOs. But it would limit the number of seats on those TPOs. And just briefly, sorry, Mayor, to take so much time.
No, go ahead, please.
But one of the main focuses of the TPO is, as we get there and have a seat, it's transportation issues for the entire area. So we don't go there we're obviously representatives of Lynn Haven, but we go there and we focus on the transportation issues for the entire area. But we'd certainly hate to lose that opportunity or that seat. So if you would, if you have the opportunity, look up those two bills. And obviously, I would like to think that we would want to have remain the number of seats that we have currently today in our TPO structure. Anyway, thank you, Mayor.
Sure. Commissioner Russell?
Thank you, Mayor. I just got a couple of quick things. I've obviously had a couple of meetings with the city manager again about different issues, and he is continuing to fix problems that I've got, and I want to appreciate that, city manager. I also would like to point out that something I brought up at the last meeting about the ditch next to Publix, about concerns with children walking around the ditch. And I want to thank Bobby Baker. He has reached out to, or he is in the process of reaching out to the property owners to see if they're going to allow us to build the bridge and alleviate this problem. Also, found out last week that we had some issues with the Fuel Depot property being open access. The gates have been left open and locks were broken. And I want to thank Lloyd Baker for reaching out to Chris Hines and taking care of that problem and getting the property resecured, keeping the kids out of there and keeping them safe. And that's all I got, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Tender?
Yes, Mayor. Actually, I'm not up on my notes from everybody I've talked to, but I do want to say again, I've received a lot of information and calls and inquiries about the marina project from the folks that live over in that area. And like I said in the first meeting, I don't think that they're against the project. I think they're against the entrance, the front door, as they call it. And so I hope that's something that I'll get a chance to talk to more people about and see where that leads. And I would like to thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you staying up on this airport issue. I appreciate you going to bat for the Triumph Fund and staying on top of that. You travel constantly, and I just want you to know that I appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That's very kind, Commissioner Tender. Commissioner Barnes?
Yes, Mayor. I obviously have not been able to get out due to the surgery I had on my foot. Things are healing well. But I do want to make mention of two individuals that recently passed away that made significant contributions to the city. The first individual is Maxie Lee Green. Ms. Green served on the Planning Commission for some time, and she worked hard on that commission and helped make Lynn Haven, or helped get Lynn Haven to where it is today. And also to Marion Lee Cook. Marion served as our city planner for some years, and Marion done an outstanding job as well as Ms. Green. So I just kind of want to take a moment to recognize these two individuals, the contributions that they made to the city, and I ask that you please remember their families in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding us and for bringing that to our attention, Commissioner Barnes. At this time, I wanted to return just for a moment to Mayor's report because I have a proclamation that I'd like to read. And I wanted to recognize and in just a moment ask him to receive the proclamation on behalf of the city. Mr. Leon Miller brought this to my attention earlier in the year that Lynn Haven as a city had not celebrated Black History Month. And all of our schools and many other organizations and all across the nation does celebrate February of every year as Black History Month. And so I'm going to be reading a proclamation now, and then our assistant clerk for the city, Ms. Vicki Gaynor, has offered to work with me, and I'm going to also ask for some more of the city staff that on the last meeting of February that we would have a reception as part of our commission meeting before the meeting starts, with refreshments and possibly some exhibits from our African American community here in the chambers. And we're talking about getting maybe some of the schools to bring in some of the things, the projects they've done during the month, and that'll give them time to have those completed if we wait until that last meeting. So we'll be working on that and keeping that information out to the public so that you'll know when it's happening. So here's the proclamation. Whereas since 1976, every United States president has officially designated the month of February as National Black History Month to honor and affirm the importance of Black history throughout American experience. And whereas the United States joins other countries around the world in devoting a month to recognize Black history, including Canada and the United Kingdom. And whereas the observance of Black History Month began in 1926, when Harvard-trained historian Carter G. Woodson and Minister Jesse Moreland sponsored the first National Negro History Week, which was celebrated the second week in February. And later in the 1960s, as part of the civil rights movement, the observance evolved into Black History Month. And whereas much of the city of Lynn Haven's honor, strength, and success can be attributed to the diversity of cultures and traditions that are celebrated by the residents of this great city, and whereas African Americans have played significant roles and made lasting contributions to our city's history and the history of Florida's economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development, while working tirelessly to contribute to every aspect of American society, including business, education, politics, science, and the arts. And whereas Black History Month is a time for all Americans to remember the contributions and legacy of those who helped build our nation, fought against prejudice to secure lives of dignity and opportunity for all of our citizens, advanced the cause of civil rights for all Americans, and strengthened our families and communities. Now, therefore, I, Margot D. Anderson, Mayor, do hereby encourage all residents of the city of Lynn Haven, Florida, to join me in honoring the many contributions made by African Americans to our city, state, and nation, and to participate in the many educational and inspirational events celebrating the month of February as Black History Month. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Lynn Haven, Florida, to be affixed this 23rd day of January 2018. Margot Anderson, Mayor. And at this time, I would like to ask our first ever elected official in the city of Lynn Haven, Mr. Leon Miller, to come forward and accept the proclamation. Thank you so much. And again, we'll have published on the website about the activities for the last meeting of February, and I hope you'll all be here to join us. Now we'll move on to item number 6, which is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I want to bring some roads that y'all have asked me to look at. The staff and I recently met with their engineer and looked at several roads that people had asked about. I want to start with Mississippi and 15th. We looked over that road. Over a year's period, we had 9 speeding tickets. The traffic count was around 750 over a 3-day span. The average on that road was right at the legal limit. So at this time, right now, we're going to continue to monitor that road. That's our recommendation to this board, and see where it goes from there. You know, police is going to be looking at that road. The next road was Petty Drive. We looked at the speeding on it. Unfortunately, that was one we had a lot of speeding on. There's no crashes, however, but we've had some speeding. We want to recommend to the board to look at putting a three-way stop at Alexander Drive and Petty. We think that would help slow down the traffic going through that subdivision area heavily. The next road is Maryland and 12th Street, which is a truck route. We have written over 100 citations on that one little road in that area. Currently, we're looking at some more alternatives on it. Right now, we're not ready to make a recommendation due to the fact that it is a truck route and the way the roads in that area are designed. So we will be bringing that back to your attention at a later date. Florida and 8th, we're also looking at alternatives on that road due to the fact the tag office will be moving to the SunTrust building. A lot of the issues there was trying to look around traffic as they parked on the road. The tag office should be moving in another 3 or 4 months, so we're hoping, you know, to look at that once again after that happens. The other road is Missouri and 5th. We'll be installing the counter there in the near future, and we'll be bringing that at a later date. So currently, out of the roads that's been brought to our attention, we want to bring the recommendation to y'all to allow a three-way stop to be placed at Alexander Drive and Petty.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There are only 2 of you, so you'll have to step up here. No, I'm sorry. Is there any further discussion from the board, from Commissioner Tender, Barnes, Friend, or Russell? Any discussion from the public about the recommendations for these roads that the city manager has presented? Thank you. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, and so the motion is approved. For any of you who are here who may not be familiar with that new ordinance, if there is a street in Lynn Haven where you live or where there seems to be a problem with traffic, the new policy now is you just bring that before the commission or to one of your commissioners or to the city staff, and a study will be done, and then action is taken or voted upon as we've done tonight. So it's a pretty quick process. Moving.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Sure, I'm sorry.
When you asked for comments, I thought you were referring to what we were voting on. I do have a question about the other roads, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
The Maryland and 12th, Michael, you said it's a truck route, and we've issued 100 tickets on that property, on that road. I mean, have you got any idea? I mean, obviously, this is a pretty significant.
That's significant, and part of the issue, according to the police force, is General Dynamics. We've had discussions with them quite a bit. They've sent out memos to their employees. They do have sometimes turnover in that area, so a lot of times we're catching people, new people, a lot. That's one reason we really want to look at some different alternatives. And I have the police chief right now looking to a different alternative to try to see if we can slow people down through that area.
Okay, so that's the road that feeds into General Dynamics.
Yes.
Along with Connecticut is the other road.
Yes.
And so are we seeing the issue with Connecticut also, or is that slowed down? Because I know originally Connecticut was one of the roads that I discussed.
We still have issues on Connecticut, so we're hoping the alternative, what we're possibly looking at, could be a solution for both.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll wait to hear what you have to say then.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure. Okay, anything else on the city manager's report? Okay. The city attorney's report, item number 7.
Yes, Mayor. I do have one thing that FDOT has asked me to bring to the commission tonight, and so I apologize for it not being on the agenda. It involves the railroad right-of-way and the rails and trails. And the issue is that when we acquired the property and Marina Island acquired the railroad right-of-way from the Air Force, we actually got the road bed under 390 where it crosses. And as you know, FDOT is in the process of expanding 390. And so they have, they're going to try to take that road from us through eminent domain, and they've actually filed a lawsuit against us this week about it. But they don't really want to sue us, they just want the road. They have presented quitclaim deeds for the city to basically transfer its interest in the right-of-way and the 100 feet north of the right-of-way. My only concern about it was that we had access to rails to trails. They have confirmed that they've actually funding the rails to trails, and so the crossing will be there at that spot whenever the engineering gets to that point, and they're paying for it anyway. And so if you all want to wait, but they would like this to be considered tonight if we could, since they're in the process of trying to resolve all these issues. And so if you all want to wait, then we can wait, but if you want to go forward, then we can get a motion to approve a resolution and transfer that property. And they'll drop the lawsuit, of course.
What is the city attorney's recommendation?
I mean, we can go forward tonight if you guys, it depends how comfortable you all are reviewing this just on my word and not seeing the deed in front of you, but I would trust me.
Mayor, I just have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Did you say 100 feet or 100 yards going north? Because 100 yards is quite a
I
distance.
think it's just 100 feet. Bobby would know, and I've talked to Bobby about this and the city manager. They're both okay with going forward with this tonight.
Okay. I mean,
Is it 100 feet?
right. So if it's just 100 feet, I mean, that's one thing.
It's the road
Yeah,
itself
is that
and 100 feet north, which is what they actually
Right.
need for the road bed.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I can just say for myself, Mayor, I wouldn't have a problem moving forward on it tonight.
Commissioner Russell?
Right in line with y'all.
Commissioner Tender?
I have no problem with it.
Okay. Commissioner Barnes?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion if I can, please.
Yeah, you certainly can.
City attorney says you may do that by phone, so go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to make the motion that we accept the city attorney's recommendation on this project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion from the board further? Any questions or discussion from the public? There appears to be none. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, so it stands approved. Thank you.
And
Mr.
that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Item number 8 is public commentary. You will be given an opportunity on each item of the agenda if you would like to make comments, but this is the particular time if you have something that's not on tonight's agenda that you would like to bring before the commission, this is your opportunity, so please let me know. Yes, sir.
David Cooley, 206 Georgia Avenue. Just a couple of things. One is I want to announce my appreciation, I guess, of Lynn Haven for cleaning up the 5th Street sidewalk. You guys got right on and out there, and it's we can walk on it now. Before you had to walk around it. The second thing, I'm really concerned. I know it came up a couple of months ago, and it wasn't voted on. Was the mixed-use change on Tennessee Avenue for condos? No, me personally, I'm totally against it in that that's not mixed use now. It's strictly single family. I think you're going to be starting a precedence if you do that. I know behind there, you know, it'll be separated as far as the marina development. But to have the condos out on the front is, to me, a big concern. In that, for example, if the condos don't sell, it's very possible it could be a low-income housing. I'm not saying that would happen, but you never know if we got a downturn or something. Plus, the traffic would be something else in that area. Another issue, kind of as part of that, I understand there's an estimated cost to the city of Lynn Haven for $10 million for the development with the roads and everything to develop that to the marina. Is that true? I've seen an estimate here about that.
That estimate I do not believe to be correct, Mr. City
No,
Manager.
sir, it's not. Part of that, where a lot of citizens are picking that up, is as Marina Island turned in a project to the Triumph Board about a possible putting in a road system through there. and that's a pie in the sky, waiting on Trump to decide what they're going to do, but that's where that number comes from.
That's not in the plans right now.
Not from the city of Lynn Haven, no, sir.
Yeah, because it was just a concern with all the development
Yes,
going
sir.
over there with the sewer that we're going to, and the water we're going to have to provide over there, so I'm sure
They will be
y'all
responsible for
addressing
their
that issue.
development.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Does anyone else have a comment or something that you'd like to bring before the commission this evening? Yes, Mrs. Walker.
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. This is in regard to the new tag office, the transfer from the present location to the SunTrust. I know my husband would ask this if he were here. Has there been any conversation with the tag office regarding the parking lot between the new SunTrust location and the Masonic Hall next door? There's a grassy area that now the Masonic Lodge uses for parking during different events and functions. It's not really their property. It belongs to SunTrust. But my husband, I think, had spoken to Mr. White regarding this situation, if there could be something worked out between all the people.
I recall speaking with your husband about that. Currently have not. I'll be glad on his behalf to talk to Mr. Perdue. He is a great guy, and I think that something could be worked out between the two organizations.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else have something you'd like to bring up tonight? It's not on the agenda. Sure. Mr. Cutchins.
Jack Cutchins, I continue to reside at 1115 Kentucky Avenue. Well, I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot, and please don't think I am, but I have a question. Some of y'all read a narrative that I provided for you a few weeks ago, in which I mentioned something about the years and years that when I built houses, and it was required you build on 100 by 150 foot lots, and at that time you could build houses around trees, leave trees, protect trees, and you had a beautiful home site for someone. What I would like someone to answer me, and that's the reason I said I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. When did someone come up with the idea that it was okay to clear cut lots from property line to property line and then build 2 or 3 houses that you can stand, which is a little wider than I am, and touch the plastic sides of? At one time, this violated a fire code, and certainly probably doesn't this day and time, but it did. But answer me the question, when did it come okay to destroy large and historic trees in Lynn Haven? There's several sites. There's one on Virginia Avenue just recently, and they're building 3 houses on this site. And as a builder, I never call myself a contractor or developer because there's a lot of difference between the two. One's an artist and the other just after dollars. But when did it become so important to build 2 or 3 houses on a building site? Does anyone, when did this change? Because at one time, we were required we had to leave a certain amount of space. We couldn't just clear cut and destroy everything on a lot. But it's certainly taking place today, and it's making our town look bad. I mean, you'll have to forgive me in Jack's eyes and some other eyes, the dollar may be more important. As I'm going to make a comment, I hope that the city doesn't think a few dollars are more important than the people who are living on Tennessee Avenue today. With those 2 points, and I hope you understood the difference between the two that I'm trying to make. But somehow or another, we need to save our trees, and I don't know what the change was, and I'm repeating myself now, trying to definitely make the point. But somehow or another, it needs to change. We're not going to have Lynn Haven before long. We're going to have concrete and asphalt. And it does not need to be like that here. We've always had, like the mayor mentioned, a cozy town. When 77 is multi-lane all the way from I-10, they're going to come to I-10 to multi-lane 390 to go to the beach. And anyway, that's what we're going to amount to. And our multi-lane through to the oil terminal site is going to become the same. Lynn Haven's going to be busted wide open. And we're going to lose our cozy little town. But thank you, and y'all all know where I'm coming from because I've spoken so many times before. But thank you very much. But please, give the saving of the trees a lot of thought, because they are important to our town. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, and I would first of all, say I don't know the answer to your question when it became legal for people when they bought a piece of property to strip the trees off of it. I don't know the answer to that because I'm not a builder or a developer. I do know that trees are important to me. I don't like to see trees cut unless we're, moving a diseased one or, replacing it with one. But I don't know the answer to your question. But I probably think I speak for this entire commission. I think that trees and the beauty of the town are important to this commission. But I don't know when that happened or when that ordinance changed. Anyone else have a response to that? Okay. Anyone else have a comment they'd like to make? Mrs. Tennell? Take your time. You can speak from where you are if you like. You're going to come on up. Okay.
I'm Libby Tennell at 505 Virginia Avenue, right off of Tennessee. And I want to thank y'all for putting that four-way stop on 5th Street because it's really slowed down the traffic.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I'm Leroy Alderson. I live at 1019 Tennessee, and I'm the author of the most recent complaint letter on speeding on Tennessee. I think the letter itself is self-explanatory. I wanted to follow up. I had an idea. The speeding is going to be an issue for the city of Lynn Haven for a long time. I think we need some sort of dedicated traffic enforcement coming from the city of Lynn Haven Police Department. And my idea is this: I would encourage the chief and his staff, they're the experts in the field of this law enforcement and speeding, encourage them to come up with a plan to attack speeding without taking away from normal routine patrol efforts of the officers. That's going to take resources. That means it's going to take funding, budgetary concerns, and it's not an immediate solution. But if they can get the city manager on board, and if he can get it to the commission and you support it, I think that's the way we're going to need to go. One of the things that recently happened, and I thought was innovative, a city not far away with similar issues, they're allowing officers to work extra duty or off-duty time, if you will, other than normal routine. They take these officers, they can work their day off, or they can work a few hours over the normal shift, and they dedicate them to traffic enforcement. That is a good use of resources, I believe. I'm simply trying to plant a seed, and maybe it's already been considered, but if not, I hope it's helpful. That's all I have.
I think your comments are well put, and I will tell you that I've had this conversation with our police chief, and he's on board with having a dedicated traffic patrol. And I know the city manager sees speeding as an issue as well, as does the commission. So I think you've planted a good seed with that. I really like your suggestion, and I think others might like it too. I don't know, but thank you for coming.
And to add to that, just to let you know, we do have off-duty officers that does work patrol very regular. we do that.
Thank you. Anyone else tonight for public commentary? Okay, moving on then to our consent agenda. Both of these items, it's item number 9, the minutes from the last meeting, and then item number 10 is a mutual aid agreement between the Lynn Haven Police Department and the Panama City Beach Police Department. I just need a motion and a second, and then we can have discussion if there need to be some.
So moved.
I move approval.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion of any of these items from the board?
Yes, Mayor.
Go
May I
ahead.
ask a question?
Go ahead, Commissioner Tender.
I'm just wondering, have we done this with the beach police? Is this something that we've done in the past also?
Okay, your
Mayor,
question.
can I answer that question?
Yeah. Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Barnes.
Ma'am, this is a item that we do every single year, not only with Panama City Beach, with other police departments as well as the sheriff's department. So it is a routine thing that we do each year.
Okay, just.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
And then I did have one question that I wanted to ask as well, and I certainly don't I'm not trying to question or put any negativity towards the police chief's request, but Panama City Beach seems to be sort of far away from Lynn Haven. It's not contiguous with us like, say, maybe the Sheriff's Department or Panama City would be. And I'm just looking at, when I look at the request, I was looking back at some of the history, and last January, Panama City Beach Police Department was saying they were strained, they were short, they needed 10 more officers. And then I noticed as early as last April, they were still saying they were strained and needed 4 to 5 officers, talking about how their community goes from 13,000 in the spring to 150,000 in the summer. And I'm just asking a question. My concern is we're already stretched here in Lynn Haven, and I'm just worried that is the beach attempting to use Lynn Haven to supplement what they're not able to put in their own budget, and that worries me. Does that make
Mayor,
sense?
Generally, this particular item will be executed if there's an emergency situation where they need other officers to respond.
Right, I read that part of it, but in another part of it, it's talking about just like any daily activities. It's almost, I may be just putting too much into it. I'm just asking the question, but it doesn't just list emergency, it lists daily operations. And I just want to make sure that Panama City Beach is not pulling us too thin because they're too thin. That's my only concern. So,
To answer your question, Mayor and the Commission, no, ma'am. These officers that typically report out there are off duty.
okay.
So they'll be getting paid by the Panama City Beach for their services.
Okay, and then my next question then, and I'm not trying to be difficult, but my next question is back to what the resident, Mr. Alderson, brought up. If we're needing people here on traffic, then why don't we pay them those extra hours to be here serving us instead of sending them out there? That's just my question.
And we can, it just take, more budgeting
Okay.
for our, because they foot the bill for these officers.
Okay, thank you. Those are just questions.
And Mayor, if I can just add, the agreement doesn't require the city to produce anybody. It's only if we want to help. There's no requirement for the city, if they request help, for us to give anybody to them.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else on the board have questions or concerns? Thank you. Anyone from the public? Okay, we've had a motion and a second then on the consent agenda. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so the consent agenda stands approved. Moving to old business, this is the second reading of ordinance 1050, small scale future land use map amendment, the House of Seafood. We've already read the ordinance and we've already had discussion. Is there a motion to move forward?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions?
Mayor, I'd just make a comment
Go
if I
ahead.
could. This one's actually a little easier, going from commercial to mixed use, simply because it's surrounded by mixed use, but also just like to point out that, irregardless of what the plans may or may not be for the property, as we look at mixed use, as I understand it, we're just making a decision on the land use itself, going from commercial to mixed use. But this one's certainly a little easier since it's surrounded by mixed use.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you for that. Anyone else have a comment or a question? Anyone from the public, a comment or question? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Commissioner Barnes, calling the roll for item 11.
Yes, ma'am, I said aye.
I'm sorry,
I'm
we just
sorry.
didn't hear you. Thank you.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so the motion stands approved. Moving to new business, item number 12 is approval of the Mosley Roundabout Transfer Agreement. I believe the city attorney has a report.
Yes, ma'am. This is just an agreement between Lynn Haven and the school board on how to handle the Mosley Roundabout project that the city is going to construct. The school board had a couple conditions in there, some things they wanted to be taken care of, and also they're going to provide their right-of-way to us so we can put the roundabout in there. The school board did approve this agreement today at their public meeting, too.
Thank you. Are there any questions or concerns from the commission?
Yes, Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Tender.
I'm concerned about a 16-year-old navigating this. I can see hundreds of them meeting in the middle. So I'm concerned about why we're doing this. Can somebody give me an explanation of why we've decided to do this and take on this expense?
Commissioner Tender, I had asked sort of a similar question. What I was told, and I kind of agree with because I was a teacher there for many years, many people have difficulty navigating a four-way stop, and there's just a lot of traffic hang-ups and too much traffic that just sort of builds because people don't know who's got the right-of-way and who does not. They're hoping that the roundabout will help to slow the traffic down on that road, as well as to mitigate some of the problems with people not knowing who has the right-of-way at the four-way. Is there anything that you'd like to add to that, City Manager?
As far as the cost of the road, that will be coming out of our transportation impact fees. So those have already been collected from residents, and this is a project ideal for spending on those.
Mayor, if I may?
And what is the cost, City Manager? What is the cost of this project?
Cost of the project, do we have that on?
Between $300,000 and $400,000.
Were you able to hear that, Commissioner Tender?
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, I was. Thank
Okay.
you. And
Commissioner-
is this something that just came up? The reason I asked this is the first time I've heard anything about it.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Yes, the reason I'm asking is because this is the first time I've heard anything about it. Is it something the school asked for, or why did we even think about this? I mean, what caused this to come about?
Mayor, if I may?
Commissioner Russell would like to comment on Commissioner Tender. Go ahead.
When we had our traffic discussions in our traffic workshop, this was one of the intersections that I brought up that we've had issues with. In addition to the traffic backing up problems we've had, you also have the issue of the second fire station that's down Mosley Drive. If you've ever been at this intersection at 8 o'clock in the morning or at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you can't get through it. And if a fire truck ever has to come through there, we're going to have a serious problem. You turn, both my kids go to Mosley. You turn onto Mosley Drive at 3 o'clock, and you're backed up from 77 all the way to the four-way. And you're going to sit there a good 15 minutes before you even get to the four-way to be able to turn into the school. I mean, it's a mess. And I think this is going to alleviate the problem quite a bit, but I also believe that Mosley is going to have to do a better job of stacking their vehicles for people that are picking up parents or picking up kids. I mean, some additional things are going to have to be done, but I think this is a good first step.
And maybe some different drop-off points for students, too. So, Commissioner Tender, does that answer all of your questions?
It did, and I agree, Commissioner Russell. Just last week, I spent about 15 to 20 minutes sitting as I turned off of 77 to go up to that next corner. So I agree with you completely.
Okay. Any other questions from the board about the roundabout for Mosley?
Yeah, I do have one question, Mayor, if I can ask it, please.
Go ahead, Commissioner Barnes.
This would be directed to the city manager. Who would be responsible for informing Mosley that this project is going to take place? Is this something that we need to do from our end to notify the people that's living in that area that will be affected by it, or will Mosley need to notify their students, faculty, and staff? How do you plan on working that?
We've already laid the groundwork, sir. I've met with the principal out there, spoke intensively about this project. I've met with the school board superintendent, spoke with him. I've met with the operations managers with the school board quite a bit. We intend to look at doing this project in the summer when the school's out, so that hopefully will give the kids some time to practice on this roundabout. Personally, one of the things I have looked at with the roundabout, many of these same kids go out to Pier Park and navigate those roundabouts pretty good. So we're hoping that this will alleviate the traffic with the right-hand turns, be able to just make things flow better. And as the mayor alluded to, I have spoken to Mosley about looking at the drop-off points to help us out, but one of my largest concerns is getting police and fire through that area, because we just can't do it right now. I think that's something that, as a city, we really need to address.
I totally agree with that. I was an administrator at Mosley as well as my son goes there, and so I know the pressure that you're dealing with. So I commend you guys for taking on this project and moving forward, trying to make this right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnes. Is there any further discussion from the commission? Any questions or discussion from the public? Yes, Mrs. Walker.
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Is it a 2-lane roundabout or a 1-lane roundabout?
I don't know.
It's a one.
1 lane like at 19th and State?
Yes, with right-hand turns.
Okay. Does a fire truck easily go around a roundabout with 1 lane only?
That's the one reason we're having to negotiate with the school board, is to get enough space to make this pretty wide.
I just can't envision a
Yes,
fire
ma'am.
truck going around a roundabout with just the 1 lane to
Yes, ma'am.
negotiate. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Hold on. Apparently, we didn't make a motion. I thought we had.
So moved.
I did. Okay. Commissioner Russell has made the motion.
Second.
Commissioner Friend made the second. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and motion stands approved. I do apologize. I really thought we had made a motion there. Item number 13 is rank and approval of the SRF Water and Wastewater Design Build RFQ 17/18-7 to the top ranked design build team. And I believe the city manager has a report for us on this.
Yes, Mayor. I included a small little letter to y'all, hopefully trying to explain this process. It's much like the half-cent surtax that we went through. Remind all the commission and the citizens that this project has not been funded at all. We are applied for the funding. This is one thing that's on my agenda to talk over next week with our representatives, when we're over in Tallahassee, to make sure that it does get funded. But we're on the list, and hopefully when they do this, it will get funded. So should the project get funded, we'll come back to you and ask you to look at accepting the funds on behalf of the citizens and allow us to do this work. And remind you, it's about $6.6 million. It's replacing the 1920s sewer and water in the city, where we can take the half-cent surtax and go back over it and pave those roads after we tear them up. With that, I'm here to answer any questions you may have. We had two qualifying contractors, Gulf Coast Utility Contractors and Phoenix Construction Panhandle Engineering. The staff ranked them as the state, we scored them as the state required, and as state requirements, we come to you with the recommendation that you accept Phoenix Construction Panhandle Engineering's proposal.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board regarding this decision?
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner Tender.
I just wanted to ask the city manager. I did see the ranking sheets that you gave us, but I couldn't read the signatures. Who actually ranked this time on these RFQs?
It was myself, Bobby Baker, which is our Public Works Director, and Greg Kidwell, which is over our water and sewer plants.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the board have a question or concern?
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, please.
The package that went out did request that the contractor bundle with an engineer, correct?
That is correct.
Do we have a reason why GCUC didn't choose to do that?
No, sir. In their packet, all it says to be announced later. So that was one of the biggest things that the RFQ stated, that we really needed to know who is all on the team, and they failed to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board?
I'll just make a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to
Commissioner, oh,
motion that we
go ahead, Commissioner Barnes.
accept. I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept Phoenix Construction and Panhandle Engineering as the contractors for this project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mayor, if I may, this is a
ahead.
CCNA type, so there's rankings, and so whoever would be number 1 ranked, you all should say in the motion, and then whoever's number 2 ranked in the motion. And then that way, when the contract is, if it becomes available, the city manager goes and negotiates with the number 1 ranked, sees if he can come up with an appropriate price, and if that doesn't, comes back to you and goes on to number 2.
Thank you. Commissioner Barnes, would you please amend your motion?
Yes, I will. I would amend my motion to rank Phoenix Construction and Panhandle Engineering as number 1 and Gulf Coast Utility Contractors as number 2.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second, and I believe Commissioner Friend had a comment or a question.
No, ma'am, I was going to make the
You're
motion.
fine? Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I do,
Yes.
I do have one question. If you come back with a negotiated price that's acceptable, and we do not get funding from the state, do we have to go forward with this project, or can we stop it?
No, sir, you do not have to go forward. This is just to try to lay the groundwork where, our process, my process has been with the city is try to move forward with the surtax money and any other funding. And as you noticed in the earlier rate study workshop, some of those funds was already allocated in there for us to pay the debt service on the 1%. So we're trying to allocate and make sure we're covering all aspects to make the city financially viable for this project.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or concerns from the board? Any questions or concerns from the public about this item? Yes, Brad.
Brad Yunt, 210 Lakeview Terrace. Was there a bid from these two firms? Was there a dollar amount, or was this just capabilities?
It was RFQ qualifications, based on their qualifications.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, there's been a motion, a second, and discussion and questions. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, and so the motion stands approved. And then moving to item number 14, I had a discussion with the city manager regarding this. His 6-month evaluation, believe it or not, is due already. It doesn't seem like it's been 6 months since Mr. White has been here. Because we have 2 commissioners out right now, there is an evaluation form for the commissioners to fill out and to go over with Mr. White individually and to talk with him about their concerns, or to tell him what a great job he's doing, or whatever we're going to say to him. But because this item requires also in his contract, if he receives a positive evaluation, a $5,000 raise, because we have 2 commissioners out and there hasn't been time for everyone to have the appropriate paperwork, I asked Mr. White if it would be all right with him if we waited until the next meeting, that I thought that would be appropriate. And so if there's not any disagreement from the board, if I could have a motion and a second to remove item number 14 and place it on next month's first agenda, I would appreciate that.
So move.
To
Second.
table it, yes. Thank you. So there's been a motion to table and a second. Is there any discussion from the board or questions? Any questions or discussion from the public? And there is none. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, and so it's approved that this will be tabled until the next commission meeting. And then item number 15 is the adjournment, and I do thank you all for your patience this evening and for taking part in a very long and productive meeting. The meeting is adjourned.